So let's stay with that story. Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba has issued a statement this afternoon announcing that he will address the media on Monday following the outcome of the party's Federal Council meeting. Mashaba had threatened earlier that he would leave the Democratic Alliance if what he called right-wing influences took over the party. Let's get some more on this now. We're joined by political analyst Professor Somadoda Fikeni from our Pretoria studio. Professor, thanks so much for your time on The Full View this evening. Helen Zille is Federal Council chairperson. What does that mean for the DA?
Well, DA is now entering uncharted waters because in the recent memory there is no time when such a high-profile leader who gave way having recruited the leader who came into power left the party and then returned to it to play a low-profile role. By all indications, in her social media postings, in the articles she wrote, she has very strong views about where Democratic Alliance is supposed to go, and she's a person of strong personality, sometimes overbearing. Therefore, the promise that she will play a low-key role is unlikely to happen, and the strained relationship with Maimane might become an issue. And some of the utterances by other leaders like Herman Mashaba may become an issue. And this might be preparing the ground battle for the Congress of the DA where they elect leadership, and also the policy conference where they will finally try to unpack the ambiguity and somewhat contradictory positions that we've seen in the recent past.
Professor, you spoke about the possible challenges ahead, specifically for Mmusi Maimane, in that interview with our reporter earlier on and in the press conference, saying that they've always, even if they've had disagreements, they've been polite, cordial and professional with each other. Do you think that that is the case? And what can we read from Maimane's body language during that press conference?
Well, I don't think you do have the organic warmth between the two and the chemistry. It means they have an awkward moment. They still have to deal with each other and find a formula of dealing with each other in a more mature manner. But at the same time, you remember all the political conferences I've watched. Leaders who come from divided positions tend to have all the pleasantries whilst they are bearing their daggers behind. And therefore, we can expect no less in this situation. It will all depend on how mature these two leaders are and how they navigate what is going to be a very tricky corridor, because they still have to deal with other issues. The broader perception that DA is drifting towards the right, the DA is more concerned about hemorrhage of whites to the FF+, and therefore might actually be beginning to rethink its position of aggressively recruiting blacks and broadening its platform. It is telling that even the committee that investigated the aftermath of elections and the performance of leadership, therefore, happened to be all white male with no sense of irony. And then you do have 4 white males, 3 white males and 1 female leader who happened to be white contesting for the federal chair. So that in itself is signaling something that the general infrastructure of the DA has not yet diversified as it should, whether it's at the level of the intellection or at the level of policy making and influence.
Professor, you've spoken about Helen Zille's, what you call her strong personality and her views. She seems to be at pains to point out that her role is not going to be a leadership one, and she's going to deal with more policy issues, not policy issues. She's going to deal with the day-to-day running of the party and the organizational structures, and not in a leadership role.
Remember that she has very strong views. She has already expressed that the Democratic Alliance was not going the direction she likes. And this was not just an administrative issue. These were deep ideological issues. Even the article where she was regretting focusing on promoting black leaders. That is quite telling in a way. And also the issues around relating with the EFF, where there is some arrangement in some of the metros that was there. All those are strong roles that I doubt will keep her in her lane of being supportive. But secondly, even in a supporting role, when you are so close to the policy conference, so close to the elective conference, having strong views, that role can be used quite effectively to determine or predetermine the outcome of those processes.
Mm-hmm. Staying with her tweets and her utterances, of course, people keep on referring back to the fact that she's tweeted things along the lines of colonialism wasn't all bad, telling people that they shouldn't be professional blacks, and a focus on these, saying she regrets race-based politics and the advancement of black people in the DA due to their biological makeup or something like the like. Herman Mashaba has said that if she wins, or if right-wing elements take over from the Democratic Alliance, he will resign. He's called a press conference for tomorrow. Do you think there'll be follow-through on that statement? Or like she was saying a little bit earlier on, perhaps they need to be having a conversation?
Well, in politics, I do think that a day is a very long time. Tomorrow he might be speaking in more nuanced languages, more subtle languages of saying he'll have a wait and see. But of course, there is still a possibility that dramatically he might actually say, I'm leaving the stage. But others might actually be trying to persuade him to say, let's stay on and fight because the policy conference is around the corner, the elective conference is around the corner. Only then will it become clear that the battle is won or lost. And therefore we can expect anything come tomorrow. But his relationship with Helen Zille, I think, will remain strained.
Professor, what importance is there at that policy conference, and what scenarios could we see emerging from the DA?
The DA is dealing with most fundamental issues on how to deal with the legacy of apartheid, how to deal with the albatross around its neck and the stigma that it is a party of white privilege, which simply has put in front black faces and some, minorities in order to justify its diversity. It has to deal with issues of land and many other issues of racism that is alleged to be permeating elements of the party. And those are most fundamental policy issues which will determine whether DA grows or stagnate or remain small. And it will also indicate whether the policy of trying to open up to black leaders will work or not. But the tone right now is not very helpful because there might be an unstated worry about some of whites who are aggrieved, who are beginning to leave the party, funders who might be reluctant to fund the party, and some who have gone to the Freedom Front Plus. Mm-hmm. There might also be concern about issues such as black economic empowerment, affirmative action, and even the conscious, deliberate policy, which ironically Helen Zille had led, of recruiting black leaders at a fast pace and fast-tracking them to leadership roles. Now, if that is the issue, it will be debated in the policy conference. But more importantly, though, you are beginning to see some divergence here. Helen Zille's own pronouncement is that race does not matter, which I think is the fundamental error of many, especially when you are in a country that has had a divided past. The moment you say what matters is an individual, not a group experience, whereas what has shaped people and the apartheid and colonial geography that we still see today has actually affected people by groups, then they might be missing the point there, which is quite fundamental. And the other one is the seemingly paternalistic notion. When Helen Zille speaks about some of the leaders, if not all black leaders, Lindwe Mazibuko, Maimane, Van Damme, and now Herman Mashaba. It's more like I recruited them, I made them. They are what they are because of me. It's no longer a matter of these are people at an equal level. It might be that subtle and not so subtle patronizing approach that might create problems going forward, because there is a reality and a perception problem here that even where you have black leaders, they are forever under tutelage.
Professor Somadoda Fikeni joining us there from our Pretoria studio.